Welcome to Alien's Shadow. If you love epic sci-fi stories where humanity shines, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for thrilling HFY adventures. Join us and be part of the journey. Asterisk the enemy she couldn't kill. Asterisk the ground shook as explosions lit the dark skies of planet Virulin. The battle between humans and Yularians had turned this green planet into ash. Soldiers screamed, energy blasts flew, and the air smelled like smoke and fear in the middle of it all. Human Commander Jareth ran through the rubble, searching for survivors. He was brave, but his body was tired, wounded, and pushed beyond its limit. Then the ground beneath him cracked, and everything went dark as he fell into the earth. He hit the bottom of a deep, collapsed tunnel. Coughing from the dust and pain, his leg was hurt, bleeding slowly, and his communication device was dead. Jareth reached for his flashlight, and when he turned it on, he froze, just a few feet away. Someone else was lying there, someone not human. It was a Yularian girl, glowing faintly with silver skin and deep blue eyes. She had sharp features, long white hair, and strange marks along her arms. She was Valid the enemy, the immortal, the one who had sworn to destroy his kind. Jareth raised his weapon, his hands shaking from pain and confusion. Vela turned her head weakly and tried to move. But she was hurt too. Her shoulder had been struck, bleeding purple, her breathing uneven. She looked at him and hissed, "Kill me then, mortal." But Jareth didn't shoot. He stared at her, tired and angry, and slowly lowered his weapon. "You're already dying," he said. "Why waste a bullet?" Vela's eyes narrowed, confused. "Why do you hesitate?" she asked, her voice filled with hate. Jareth leaned against the wall, trying to stay awake. "We're both stuck down here," he said. "Might as well die in silence." The tunnel was sealed tight. No way out, no sound from above, just two enemies trapped together in a grave made by war. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the sound of dripping water. Jareth ripped part of his sleeve and crawled toward her. Vela growled, "Stay back. I don't need help from your kind. You're bleeding," he replied, "immortal. Or not, you'll die if that infection spreads." He wrapped her wound with shaking hands, his breath heavy from the pain in his own leg. She didn't stop him this time, just stared at his face. There was no cruelty in his eyes, only exhaustion. And something else she didn't understand: kindness. "I don't get it," Vela whispered later, her voice softer. "Your people kill without mercy." Jareth looked at the cracks above, his voice low. "And yours live forever without feeling anything." She turned her face away. But his words stayed with her like a sharp stone under the skin. They began to talk, slowly, like strangers forced to wait in a storm. Vela told him about the Yularians, how emotions were weakness, how love was forbidden. Jareth told her about Earth, about laughter, music, and the way his little sister danced in the rain. Vela had never seen rain, only the crystal sky of her world, but something inside her wanted to see it now, to feel it when Jareth offered her his last food ration. She refused at first, but his eyes were steady and his hand didn't shake. She took it, chewing slowly, confused why it warmed her chest more than her stomach. This human. She had tried to kill him, yet he shared food, treated her wounds, spoke like a friend. It made no sense. And yet, it made her heart beat faster. The tunnel trembled again, shaking dust from the ceiling. "Do you think they'll find us?" she asked, voice thin. "Maybe," Jareth said. "Maybe not." "If not," she said slowly, "would you die here with me?" Jareth looked at her, not as an alien, but as a person. He gave a tired smile. "I'd rather die with someone than die alone." She blinked, surprised, then closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt small, mortal, and real. She had seen 1,000 sunsets, fought hundreds of wars, and lived through centuries. But no moment ever felt like this quiet, painful, and full of something she had no name for. In that dark place, between life and death, something changed. The immortal girl who once hated humans now listened to one breathe beside her. And her heart whispered a truth she didn't want to hear. She didn't want him to die. Not him, not Jareth. Her people Shambhala stood in silence as her people surrounded her with weapons drawn. Her glowing skin was now dimmer, her steps slower, and her heart, once cold and proud, was burning with confusion. She was back on Yalara, but it didn't feel like home anymore. The guards dragged her through the silver gates of the capital, their eyes filled with disgust. To them, she was no longer an immortal warrior. To them, she was something worse than dead. She was tainted. The elders stood tall at the center of the hall, their robes shimmering like ice. They had ruled Yalara for over 10,000 years without emotion, without weakness. Vela knelt before them, her body still aching from the war zone. One elder stepped forward and raised his hand. "You bonded with a human," he said, his voice echoing coldly. "You allowed mortal care to touch your immortal form." Vela did not speak. She looked at the shining floor and remembered the warmth in Jareth's eyes. She remembered the food he gave her, the way he smiled even when he was bleeding. Those moments felt more alive than all her centuries combined. Still, she said nothing. The council declared her soul stained. Her immortality was now unstable, her powers flickering, her healing slowed. They forced a burning mark onto her skin, a symbol that she was no longer pure. The pain was sharp, but she didn't cry. The only thing that hurt was knowing she couldn't go back to the tunnel. She couldn't go back to him. The punishment was exile within her own world. No one could speak to her. No one could touch her. The other Yalarians stared from a distance, whispering words like traitor and human lover. Children were pulled away from her path. Guards turned their backs. Even her closest friend Lyrian refused to meet her eyes. Vela walked through her own city like a ghost. Nights became colder, not from the air, but from loneliness. She watched the moons rise and set, wondering if Jareth had survived. She dreamed of him, the human who didn't treat her like a weapon, the one who helped her without needing anything. In return, she remembered the way he looked at her, not like an alien, but like a person. And every time she remembered, her immortality weakened. One evening, her body trembled, and she fell to her knees near the sacred lake. She tried to rise, but her limbs felt heavy. Her light was fading from inside. A healer passed by and saw her shaking, but he walked away. Without stopping, she was untouchable now, unworthy of aid. Vela smiled bitterly, thinking, and they say humans are cruel. That night, she stared at her reflection in the water. Her silver skin now had shadows. Her once glowing eyes had lost their shine, but there was something new, something strange emotion. She placed her hand on her belly, not from pain, but from instinct. Her body was changing in ways she couldn't explain, and then it hit her. Like lightning, she was not just soul-stained, she was with child. A mix of fear and wonder filled her heart. It was impossible, unthinkable, a Yalarian bearing life specially with a human. But she knew, deep inside, it was true. This child would be different. Born of war, but made from peace, and suddenly, the shame and punishment no longer mattered. She had something worth protecting, worth leaving everything behind. The next morning, she made her decision. She packed a small bag, hid her face under a dark hood, and moved through the shadows. She didn't say goodbye, because no one would have listened anyway. She reached the edge of the city where the teleport beacons hummed with blue light. With a deep breath, she touched the stone and activated the forbidden path to Earth. As her body turned into light, she looked back once, not in regret, but in farewell. Yalara had lost her, but Jareth hadn't. And neither had their unborn child. The forbidden return, The stars above Earth looked different to her now. They used to be cold points of light in the distance, but tonight, as Vela stood under Earth's sky for the first time in months, they felt warm, alive, and full of meaning. Her hood was low, hiding her Yularian features, her step unsteady as she walked through the human city like a shadow. She had never felt so weak and so human, and yet, inside her, something strong was growing small, unknown, and full of light. Jareth had moved to the outer colony, away from war. He worked in a repair station near the edge of the mountains. Far from politics, he never expected to see her again. That night, he stood on the rooftop, watching the twin moons rise over the sea. While watching the twin moons rise over the trees, he still dreamed of her, even after all this time. And when he turned around and saw the figure at the edge of the roof, his heart stopped. "Vela," he said, breathless. She pulled back the hood slowly, revealing silver skin, but her glow was faint. Jareth stepped closer. Seeing the way she shivered in the wind, she looked different, tired. Thinner, yet her eyes were the same. And when she whispered, "I had nowhere else to go," his chest tightened. He led her inside without another word. She sat near the heat lamp, rubbing her hands together like she had forgotten how to be warm. "I thought you hated Earth," he said softly. "I did," she replied, "but I hated myself more." Jareth knelt beside her, studying her face. "You're sick," he said. "Are you hurt?" She looked down, her hand resting lightly on her stomach. "I'm changing," she said. "Because of you," he blinked, unsure what she meant. "I'm carrying life," she whispered. "Something my kind never do," for a long moment. The room was silent, except for the low hum of machines. "You're pregnant?" he asked, shocked. She nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "Our child? It's part of me and part of you." Jareth leaned back, his heart pounding with emotion and fear. He had never imagined this future. He was just a soldier, not a father, not a guardian of something so rare. Vela placed his hand gently over her belly. "I came back because I don't want to raise this child alone," she said. "I want it to be born on Earth, not in a world that would call it a mistake." Jareth couldn't speak, his throat tight, but he nodded. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. They were no longer enemies, no longer strangers from opposite sides of war. They were just two beings connected by something impossible, something sacred. That night, she slept on his couch while he sat nearby. Watching her breathe, she curled up like she was protecting something precious inside her. He realized she had risked everything, her people, her power, her eternity to return, and now she was his responsibility, not out of duty, but out of something stronger. The next morning, news broke across the galactic networks. Yularian trackers had followed forbidden energy signals to Earth. An order was issued: capture Vela alive, return her to Yulara for punishment. Jareth turned off the screen, his jaw clenched. "They're coming for you," he said. Vela stood quietly, her face calm. "They can't have me," she replied. "And they can't touch our child," he asked. "What will they do if they find you?" "They will tear me apart," she said. "They will not let an immortal give birth to something mortal." Jareth's hands tightened into fists. "Then we fight," he said. But Vela shook her head. "No, we hide, we protect, we prepare. Together." They moved into a deeper part of the colony, a hidden shelter once used during old wars. It was small, cold, and dark, but it was safe. Jareth filled the room with warmth, lights, and food. Vela laid on a soft surface, holding her belly and whispering to the child within. "This world is broken," she said softly, "but your father is whole, and so will you be." The child inside her kicked for the first time, and she smiled, even if her body weakened each day. Her heart felt stronger than ever. For the first time in her long life, she wasn't afraid of death. She was only afraid of leaving her child without love, and that, she thought, would be the last thing she ever allowed. Asterisk, the price of mortal HFY once walked among stars, her skin glowing brighter than the suns of dying galaxies. But now she lay on a soft old bed in a hidden shelter. Gasping softly as warmth left her limbs, little by little, immortality was not a gift anymore. It was a memory. Her powers had faded, her strength weakened, and yet she had never felt more alive. Every heartbeat of the child inside her came with a price. Every kick stole a little more energy from her soul. The child was growing faster than any human baby, powered by something ancient and untamed. Jareth stayed close every day, watching her change. He brought her warm food, old books, even broken toys he repaired with his hands. She smiled weakly each time, whispering, "You still don't understand what you mean to me." But peace couldn't last forever. One morning, a signal cracked through their blocked comms. A warning: 3 Ilarian hunters had entered the colony, silent, fast, and deadly. They moved through shadows like ghosts. Jareth knew they were here for one reason too: take Vela back. Alive or dying, they didn't care. Vela stood slowly and pressed a hand to her belly. "If they find me, they'll take the child too," she said, "and raise it as a weapon. Or destroy it if they can't." Jareth's eyes darkened. His hands clenched. "Then we don't let them find you," he replied. He began to prepare a second escape path, a tunnel buried deep under the floor. But Vela shook her head. "No more running," she said. "If I'm to leave this world, I choose how and where." That night, she lit a small candle and placed it in the center of the room. She wore an old Ylarian robe, once meant for rituals of power, but this time it was not for power, it was for love. She told Jareth to sit beside her. "There's something I must do," she whispered. "Something no immortal has ever done willingly." He watched as she reached into her robes and pulled out a silver crystal glowing faintly like a fading star. "This is the core of my life," she said. "My soulstone. If I shatter this, my immortality ends completely," she explained. "No return, no healing, no future beyond this body." Jareth's eyes widened. "You'll die," he said eventually. She nodded. "But my child will live." Tears slipped from his eyes. "Don't do this for me," he said. "I'm not," she replied, placing the stone in his hand. "I'm doing it for us," with trembling fingers. Jareth squeezed the stone. It cracked, then shattered into dust that swirled around them like silver wind. Vela gasped, her body arching as light burst from her chest. Her wings faint and transparent flashed one last time, then vanished. The mark on her skin glowed, then faded, and when it ended, she was still there, breathing, shaking, alive, mortal. She looked at Jareth, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm no longer eternal," she whispered, "but I've never felt more real." Jareth pulled her into his arms, holding her like something fragile and priceless for the first time. They kissed not as soldier and alien, but as man and woman. Their bond was no longer marked by war or duty, but by sacrifice and love. The next day, the Ylarian hunters came. They found only ashes in the fireplace and a cold shelter. Jareth and Vela had already moved into the deep earth, hidden from light, hidden from war, but glowing with something brighter than stars. In the darkness, Vela whispered to her unborn child, "You are worth every scar, every choice, every breath I gave up. You are the future of 2 worlds. And I will hold you, even if I must fall to do it." Her skin no longer glowed, but her soul, now human, shone brighter than ever before. The child of 2 worlds lightning danced across the sky as thunder rolled over the mountain colony, deep beneath the surface. In a quiet shelter lit only by soft glow lamps, a miracle was growing. Vela lay on a warm bed, her breathing shallow, her body weaker than ever before, and yet, within her, the child pulsed with a strange light enchant, powerful, and unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. Each day, Jareth watched her with eyes full of silent fear. He knew she was fading. Piece by piece, as the child took more from her body to grow, doctors from Earth's hidden alliance came secretly. Risking their lives to study the pregnancy, none had seen anything like it. The baby's energy pattern was unstable, half mortal, half immortal, and something else entirely. "We've never recorded anything like this," one scientist whispered. "She should be dead already." Another said, "But something inside her keeps holding on." They ran scans, they took readings. They argued in hushed voices, but none could explain how Vela smiled every time Jareth entered the room. None could measure how love was keeping her alive. The child's heartbeat echoed through the room one night. Loud and clear, Jareth placed his hand on her belly, tears rising to his eyes. "She's strong," he whispered. Vela smiled weakly, her voice like wind through glass. "She's more than strong," she said. "She's the bridge between our worlds." Outside, the galactic news had already begun to change. Rumors of a hybrid child spread across star systems. Some feared it would be a weapon, a monster, an unstoppable force. Others believed it was the beginning of peace. On Yalara, some rebels began to rise, calling for change, using Vela's name in secret songs. But peace never comes without danger. One of the human scientists was a spy. He leaked the child's location to a powerful warlord who wanted to capture the baby and sell her genetic code. Late one night, a silent ship descended through Earth's atmosphere. Cloaked in shadows, a team of mercenaries moved toward the hidden mountain base. Weapons ready, inside, Vela woke with a jolt, her body trembling. "They're coming," she whispered, clutching her belly. Jareth grabbed his weapon and checked the security feed. "They've breached the outer wall," he said. "We have." 5 minutes, the doctors panicked, grabbing equipment and data drives. Vela tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Jareth caught her, lifting her gently. "You're not fighting," he said. "You're carrying everything that matters." The escape tunnel was narrow, dark, and cold. Vela held onto Jareth's neck as he carried her through twisting paths. Behind them, gunfire echoed, walls shook, and smoke filled the air. But Jareth didn't stop, not once. They emerged in a forest clearing under a silver sky. An emergency. Ship waited, sent by Earth's defense circle. The commander saw Vela and froze. "Is that the child?" he asked, eyes wide. Jareth nodded, sweat and blood on his face. "She's our future," he said. "And we need to protect her at all costs." Vela was rushed to the onboard medical unit. Her skin pale, her lips blue. Machines beeped, lights blinked, and doctors shouted commands. Jareth held her hand, whispering her name again and again. She looked at him, her voice barely there. "Don't let them take her," she said, "no matter what happens to me." He kissed her forehead and said the words he never got to say before. "I love you." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I know," she whispered, and then the pain came. Her body arched as the child inside her began to enter the world. No anesthesia worked, no sedatives held. Her mixed blood and collapsing energy systems made the delivery chaotic and dangerous. But she held on, screaming, crying, breathing through the fire, because she had already chosen this path. And then, a sound pierced the storm of voices, a cry. High and clear. The baby was born. The room went silent. She glowed faintly. Her skin a soft gold, her eyes shimmering between blue and stays. Her eyes shimmering between blue and green. The doctors stepped back, stunned. This child. One whispered, "She's not just a blend, she's new." Jareth took her gently, tears falling from his face to hers. He looked toward Vela, still pale, barely breathing. She opened her eyes one last time and smiled weakly. "You?" See her?" she asked. Jareth nodded, holding the child close. "She's perfect," he said. Vela exhaled slowly, her eyes never leaving her daughter. And then, in silence, she closed them for the final time. Asterix's death before birth, Jareth didn't scream. He didn't cry out when the monitor flatlined. He didn't speak when the doctors stopped moving. Their hands frozen in helpless silence, he just stood there, holding the glowing newborn in his arms, while the love of his life slipped away beneath the white sheets. Vela, the immortal warrior who had given up eternity, had taken her final breath. The ship's lights dimmed, as if the universe itself paused to mourn her. Outside, stars blinked gently through the window. But they looked colder now. Jareth stared at her face, peaceful in death, and felt something inside him tear in half. "She's gone," someone whispered behind him. But Jareth shook his head slowly. "No," he whispered. "She became something more." The child in his arms let out a soft, musical cry. Unlike any human baby, her skin shimmered with golden veins. Her hair was fine like threads of light. She wasn't just a daughter, she was a beginning. Jareth pressed her to his chest, wrapping her in a cloth made from Vela's old robe. "You're not alone," he told her. "I'm your father, and I'll never let go." Back on Earth, the news exploded. An immortal had died to bring a child into a mortal world. Some called the child a miracle. Others called her a mistake. Religious leaders declared her divine. Scientists called her dangerous. Factions across the galaxy started moving, some wanting to protect her, others wanting to use her. But Jareth didn't care what they called her. To him, she was his daughter, and her name would be Ilari. The Earth Defense Circle gave Jareth sanctuary in a protected lunar base, there hidden from spies and mercenaries. He raised Ilari day by day. She grew faster than any child. Learning to speak within months, she laughed like Vela, sharp and sweet. Her eyes changed with her emotions, sometimes green like Jareth's, sometimes glowing blue like her mother's. But something strange happened on her 3rd birthday. While playing with a glowing crystal toy, she closed her eyes and the crystal floated into the air. Jareth stared in shock. She hadn't touched it. She had willed it. Ilari could do things no one understood. She could feel emotions from others like they were sounds. She could move objects with her thoughts, bend energy with her hands, and yet she still giggled like a child, still clung to Jareth's arm when scared. She was powerful but innocent. Soon, scientists from Earth and even peaceful Yularian rebels came to observe her. Many wanted to study her, but Jareth only allowed those who showed kindness. He made them promise she would not be tested like a lab sample. She was not a weapon, not a subject. She was a child, but there were those who didn't care. A secret Yularian faction, still loyal to the old ways, plotted in silence. They believed Ilari was a sin, a threat to immortality itself. "She must not be allowed to live," their leader said. "She is the key to the end of our kind." One dark night, they struck. The lunar base trembled under the force of an unexpected blast. Jareth grabbed Ilari and ran through the emergency corridor. Heart pounding, lights flickered, alarms screamed. And the air was filled with smoke and sparks. Behind them, elite assassins moved silently. Cutting through guards, Jareth reached the escape pod, holding Ilari tight against his chest. She was crying now, terrified, but even in fear, her eyes began to glow, and as the enemy approached, she raised her hand. A wave of invisible force knocked them back. Throwing metal crates like feathers, she didn't speak, she didn't scream. She simply protected her father. Jareth launched the pod, holding her close as it shot into space through the window. He saw the moon base erupt in flame, but he didn't look back long. He kissed her head and whispered, "You saved me, just like your mother did," and Ilari, still shaking, whispered one word, Mama. The legacy of a mortal goddess on a quiet green world. Far from war and politics, a little girl walked barefoot through the grass. Her skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight, her eyes glowing softly with two colors. Birds followed her from branch to branch. The wind moved gently around her, and even wild creatures lowered their heads as she passed. Her name was Ilari, and she was the daughter of a mortal man and an immortal warrior. She didn't know war, but she felt it in her father's eyes. She didn't know her mother's voice, but it lived in her dreams. Each night, she looked up at the stars and whispered, "Are you watching me, Mama?" And deep in the silence of the sky, she believed the stars blinked back. Jareth had kept his promise. He had raised Ilari with love, patience, and truth. He taught her both science and kindness. Survival and empathy. He never called her a weapon. Only a wonder. He told her stories of her mother not as a goddess, but as a woman who chose love over eternity. When Ilari turned 10, something awakened inside her. During a small village fire, she lifted 3 people from the flames without. Touching them, her body pulsed with energy. Her eyes turned silver, and when it ended, the fire was gone. Word spread fast across colonies, planets, and even the Ilarian Empire. Some feared her, some worshipped her, and others simply wanted to understand her, but none could control her. She was not a weapon, not a symbol, not a myth. She was a child who had already lost too much. The Galactic Council sent envoys to speak with her. They offered riches, safety, positions of power. But Ilari looked them in the eye and asked, "Would any of that bring my mother back?" And the room fell silent. Instead of choosing power, Ilari chose purpose, with Jareth at her side. She began traveling from world to world, not as a ruler, but as a guide. She calmed wars with words, healed wounds with a single touch, and reminded even the oldest species that peace was a choice. Everywhere she went, she left behind gardens. Not graves, hope, not fear. One day, she stood at the gates of Yulara, now broken and changed. The elders were gone, the old laws burned by time and rebellion. Statues of Vela stood in the Crystal City no longer as a warrior, but as a mother holding her child. The people gathered in silence as Ilari stepped forward, her bare feet on sacred ground. "I don't want revenge," she said, her voice echoing with quiet power. "I don't want to rule you. I just want you to remember what you lost." The crowd bowed their heads, some wept. Others whispered her mother's name like a prayer. And for the first time in Yularian history, they clapped not as a show of strength, but of gratitude. Jareth stood at the back, his hair gray now, his eyes full of pride. He had given everything to protect her, and now she was giving everything back to the galaxy. Later that night, she sat beside him under the stars, resting, her head on his shoulder. "Do you think she's proud of me?" Ilari asked. He smiled and replied, "She gave up eternity just so you could exist." "She's more than proud." Ilari looked up at the sky. She didn't need to speak. Somewhere beyond the stars, something glowed softly like a hand, reaching out like a whisper from a mother who had never truly left. And in that moment, the galaxy knew one truth. The immortal goddess had died, but her legacy had just begun.